Hello all, I hope you are having a lovely day. Today I wanted to continue with Cartman's drama triangle because I felt like in the last video I didn't quite make it clear enough, I believe, with the different roles and what they look like. And in case you didn't see the first video, I will be putting a link for it at the end of this one so you can click on that and go back to the first video. But in case you didn't see the first video or you don't remember the first one, what I was talking about were the three roles from the drama triangle, which are the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. My concern with the video I made was because of the titles, which have really strong names like persecutor, rescuer, and victim, the behavior I was talking about from people looks this. But what I'm talking about is behavior that looks more like this. It's the little things that make it really easy to pull you in. And I didn't want to give the impression that it's only the big things. So in this video, I'm going to go a little more in depth with the different roles on the triangle and what they might look like. And be more clear per role how to stop yourself from triangulating or how to get off the triangle if you're on it, based on the role that you might be in at that time. So I'll start with the persecutor. The persecutor is someone who the main role that they have is to blame. There's criticism, there's blaming. They are rigid and authoritarian, and they tend to be mobilized by their anger. Now, there are times when we can be in a healthy place and be perhaps have some feedback for some people that could be seen as critical. It could be that someone else is responsible for something and you're not, and you're making that clear. What I'm talking about, though, is things that are done that are unnecessary. They're over the top of what is reasonable or isn't based in reality. And the purpose of it is to maintain control and keep the victim oppressed. And it also helps the persecutor to make sure that they don't become the victim themselves, but that they stay in the one-up role. So this can be quite large, like you would think like a bad guy in a movie, or this could be much smaller. And in general, the main idea is to make people feel bad, most likely so that you don't have to feel bad yourself. We all probably can identify someone in our lives who fits that they tend to be more angry, they tend to be more critical, they tend to do more blaming. But that's not to say that the rescuer, the victim, couldn't also take that role as well, as the drama triangle isn't something that's static, but it can actually change. And the rescuer and the victim can become a persecutor over time. If it builds up and builds up, their particular needs are not getting met. Like the victim may get tired of being pushed down and oppressed, or the rescuer may get tired of doing all of this work and getting nothing back, and then it builds up and builds up, and then they become angry, and then they blow up. And then they start blaming, criticizing, making other people feel bad as a way for them to gain back control. But even in those cases, it's about not having healthy boundaries, not being assertive, and not expressing what your needs are. You have to have clear structure and limits. It means that things are not reactive. It's not about trying to push people down or control things by using your anger, being critical, by blaming or setting limits. Essentially, you're not trying to get your wants and needs met by strong-arming someone into doing the things that you want, or putting people down so that you can feel better about yourself. And it's about taking personal responsibility for your own anger. It is possible to be angry about something and be assertive that doesn't lead to victimization of someone else, or to be making them, and I guess another way of saying it so it's less strong, where you are making people feel bad or trying to guilt them or what have you to get them to do something. That you accept that some people are going to do the things that they're going to do. And it may not be what you like, but you're not going to blame or criticize or be rigid in ways to try to control that behavior. So the next role I wanted to talk about, even though on the triangle, the persecutor and the rescuer are on the top and the victim is on the bottom, it's easier to show as an illustration a starting point of the persecutor, and then we have the victim and then the rescuer. That's not to say that's the way that it always starts, but it seems to be, for example purposes, a pretty clear way to do it. It could start anywhere, but for what I'm talking about, we're going to start with the persecutor and then the victim. For the victim, the main word or phrase is poor me. So the victim is someone who feels helpless and hopeless and powerless and immobilized in a way that is actually beyond reality. Now, there are some people at times, let's say, where they are physically ill and they're relying on other people to help them, and that they need to ask for help. They really can't take care of themselves and they need someone else to do it. That is based in reality. What I'm talking about is someone who believes that they're helpless and hopeless beyond reality. Another part of being the victim is that there is the belief that other people make us feel good or bad. And as the victim, a lot of the feelings that come up are shame and hopelessness and helplessness. And so if you believe that other people make you feel this way, they make you feel ashamed or hopeless or helpless, then you're not going to take personal responsibility for those feelings and try to take some action to make some changes in your life. And when you're taking the victim role, you're stopping yourself from doing a number of things. You stop yourself from making decisions, you stop yourself from solving problems, and you also stop yourself from experiencing pleasure and having more self-understanding. And the victim will look to the rescuer to help perpetuate these negative feelings. And if we have someone who's taking on the persecutor role, who's going above and beyond what is necessary to perhaps give constructive criticism, to point out where there are some issues, then you can see how it's easy for the victim to say, well, you see, this is what's happening. But the presence of a persecutor doesn't always necessarily have to lead to being a victim. Because remember, these are all reactions and they're not actions. Actions are things we do regardless of the things that are going on around us that may be compelling us to do certain things. So if you find yourself going into the role of victim, or you're already there, or you feel like someone is kind of pushing that, then you want to stop and then move into clear problem solving. So you don't have someone else solve it for you. You don't remain immobilized, and you start taking action. And again, we're not talking about someone who can't do something for themselves and expect them to do it and solve it themselves. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about someone who can actually do these things. They have the capability to do these things and they don't. And if you start problem solving for yourself, then things start changing, and then you're off the drama triangle, or you're on your way to be off the drama triangle, and it matters less if there's a persecutor involved or a rescuer. So now on to the rescuer, and the word or phrase that fits with that is enabler. And the rescuer is someone who can be perceived by themselves or others as someone who is nice, who's helpful, and they see their role is to make others feel good. I originally was going to say help others feel good, but it's actually further than that. It's make others feel good. So we're going to go back to the idea of there's nothing wrong with helping someone, but this goes above and beyond what is needed to actually be helpful. So ways to know if you are rescuing are if you're helping others when you don't want to, or if you don't help or rescue, you feel guilty for not helping. And this one's a little tough, is when you're rescuing, you are keeping people dependent. This one can be tricky because there can be a fine line between someone who can actually act independently and someone who is being kept as dependent because they're not allowed to fail. Other ways to be a rescuer and go beyond healthy nurturing would be doing something you weren't asked to do. I would say that's a big one, where you just step in and kind of start taking over and doing things. Or you try to do something that you can't do. A good one with this that I see a lot, and I think most people can relate to this, is if you've ever had a time when you've lent more money to someone than you could really afford. And then if they don't pay you back, then you're going to have problems in some other part of your life. Which fits with another way you can tell if you're rescuing or not, is if you are doing more than 50% of the work. Now, in relationship, whatever kind of relationship that is, from time to time, it's not going to be 50-50. It's going to be 20-80. It's going to be 60-40. It's going to change. It's going to fluctuate. But if it's always that you're doing more than 50%, then this is rescuing. And again, this is if someone is really capable of taking care of themselves. And another thing that can indicate that you're rescuing is if you're not asking for what you want. So if you find it easier to advocate for someone else's wants and needs, but when it comes to your own, you have a hard time doing that, then that means that you're likely rescuing. So to stop rescuing, instead of just reacting to situations, the action then is clear nurturing, which means that it's healthy nurturing, that there are boundaries there to what you will and will not do to help someone else. This then will help you to not contribute to the victim role or reinforce the perpetrator role. And it will also give you the time, resources, and energy for you to take care of yourself. And as a final note, as you continue to make choices that are best for you and you move more into a healthy place, these relationships will change, and there's an opportunity for you to have real connection then with people you're already in relationship with, and also other people who have yet to come into your life. Well, that's all I have for today. My name is Bethany Brunn. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I hope today's video helped you to get back to you. Bye!